We are back. Welcome to the Leadership Launchpad Project. I'm Rob Kalwarowsky, and as always, the yang to my yin, Susan Hobson's here. Susan, how are you?
I am excellent. I'm excited about this interview. So let's go. Let's get this party started.
Let's get this party started. And as always, we got to start off with a quote. And I have one here from APJ Abdul Kalam. And he says, "You have to dream before your dreams can come true."
That's good.
And that'll be apparently clear right now. We have our special guest with us, Jason Lippert, the CEO of Lippert Components. And if you want to check their website out, lc1.com. Jason, how are you?
Good. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, guys. Happy to be here.
Thanks for joining us, and obviously for folks in podcast world. So if you go back a few weeks, we had Dr. Amber Selking on the show. She works for Jason. She's their VP of Leadership Development. And funnily enough, one of our previous guests as well, Gary Ryan, the author of Disruptive Leadership Matters, put Jason and I in contact after a video of Jason speaking about their Dream Achiever program came across on LinkedIn, and I'll put the video in the podcast notes. So that's a wild connection as well. Thank you, Gary, for that. And Jason, before we get into the Dream Achiever program and everything you're doing at Lippert, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and how'd you get here?
Yeah. So I've been with the business for almost 30 years and started as a welder in the business. It was a family-run business, and long and short, we became CEO, and we've grown immensely. We've made a lot of acquisitions, done a lot of organic growth, expanded all over the globe. In the last 20 years, I've been leading the company, and we're about $5 billion in revenues today, and about 15,000 team members across the world. And most of that's here in North America, with a large concentration in Indiana. But we're make a lot of components for a lot of different types of vehicles, namely RVs and boats and buses and all sorts of things.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit about this dream program. I had the fortune of watching the video, so I definitely am inspired by this initiative. But just for our audience to plug in, tell us a little bit about this initiative.
Yeah, so I read the Dream Manager by Matthew Kelly many years ago. In the story, just it hit home. We were in the middle of a culture journey and doing some cool things and trying to innovate around culture and leadership development. And it occurred to me after reading the book that why don't we ask our team members what their goals and their dreams are in life, not just at work. And really, we weren't even doing that, in a large part at work at the time. So I had a lot of other of our executives read the book, and eventually a lot of other leaders in the business read the book, and we all kind of game plan and said, "Hey, look, this looks like a good, we can start our own Dream Achiever program right in the business." And we just started sitting down with team members one at a time, people that were interested in, that we talked to that were interested in digging in there. What we found out is that most adults, in their 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s and even their 60s, I mean, they stop dreaming after they got out of high school because life gets busy, they get working, start families, and there's just, as there's just all sorts of stuff to fill your calendar. And we forget about the dreams and goal setting and things like that. I think the stat that I often use is 1% of 1% of America actually writes their goals and objectives down in a plan, written down. So it's kind of hard to have a plan if it's up in your head anyway. So the process is taking getting people out of the production world, sit them down in a quiet spot, go through a curriculum of pulling their goals and dreams out of their mind and writing that stuff down and writing some distinct actions, so they know how they're going to accomplish those dreams and goals over the coming years. And it just lights people up. It just puts them in touch with a part of their inner self that they either had lost or forgotten about. And it makes them, a better human being, better for their families, better in the workplace, because they just kind of have a renewed passion for, for life and goals and objectives.
I love that. And something you mentioned in the video is a quote that most of the folks tell you is basically, no one's ever talked to me about my dreams before. And certainly nobody in a workplace context. Like, can you tell us about that? Like, where are we missing the gap as leaders?
Yeah, that's a great, that is the question. It's, I think a lot of it is, the other stat I always quote is 88% of people in the country feel like they work for a place that doesn't care about them. So what does that tell you about leadership? It's not the company that can really care. The company's an entity. It's the people, the leaders who need to do the caring. So, caring about people is one of our values, and that's really helped us, develop people and focus people in on, hey, part of our job as leaders is to care about the people that work here every day. And, it's not just caring about the work they get done or how they show up to work. It's about how they show up in life. So, I think that's one thing that a lot of leadership misses in business is, they're so busy about, the bottom line and how are we going to hit our production numbers? Are we going to hit our business goals and objectives? But then we trample over people in the process and don't really think about thoughts and feelings and, what's going on in their life, and really taking time to develop meaningful relationships, which is our mission statement. It's developing meaningful relationships with our team members. Once we do that, we gain their trust and we get their whole self coming into work, participating in a way that, they probably haven't participated in companies they worked for in the past, because they come up and they're kind of whipped and driven into, hey, we got to do this, got to do this, got to do this. And there's no time to focus on who that person is and what's going on in their life and how do we care about them more? How do we make them feel more included and engage them in a way that, is not typical. So I think that's where the country needs to get to, is just change the model of leadership to focus on values and people and caring versus, hey, look, we're here to get a job done and go home. It's more than that.
And for those leaders that are listening that maybe haven't stumbled upon this gap themselves, at least from a self-awareness standpoint, I wonder if you could share just some of what you noticed in this experiment of engaging your employees and asking them about their dreams.
Yeah. So I think part of it is, I've been witness to groups of people that have gone through the program, and I just asked them to, kind of share, how it made them feel, what the process was like, and just, the comments all came back really similar. I mean, people cry. I mean, people cried when they sat down to start really getting the stuff pulled out of them, but they cried again telling the story about what it was like for them, because it's just so meaningful. So, there's immense power in a business and the leaders in business taking time to care about their team members and help them in life, help them grow and develop as a human being. To me, that's a cheat code for, success in business and high retention, is invest in, your team members in a meaningful way that they can look at the business, they can look at the leadership and know that they actually care. But the responses were incredible. I mean, just people, the crazy things people wanted to do, not crazy, but the things people wanted to accomplish in life, some of them were so simple. They didn't have time. They didn't have somebody there holding them accountable. They didn't have somebody there pushing them and challenging them and saying, hey, look, is that it? Or is it this, or is it that? Because again, we all get so busy just trying to get to the, black and white stuff around work and things like that. So, those are some of the immediate, reactions and, observations I had as we went through that program. But it's the bottom line is it's life-changing and transformational for most people. And what most people don't think about, even in doing that, is what is the impact once that person transforms? What is the impact they have on their kids, on their spouse, on the people they're around once they leave the four walls? That transformation and impact is even more incredible because they're out there, impacting other people, because the light bulb came on and they're all lit up and feel alive again, and it's pretty cool.
That's amazing. I mean, I'd love to hear a story. Can you tell us a story about like one of the dreams that was achieved?
Oh, yeah. So I'd say, we kind of put it into buckets. I mean, there's people have spiritual goals, they have health goals, they have family goals, all sorts of personal goals, financial goals. One of the things that surprised us the most is that a lot of people in the front lines of our business, and that's where 95% of our team members are, is making parts on the front line of our business. These men and women, a lot of them just wanted to own their first home. They've been, generations of renting or, moving around and things like that, living paycheck to paycheck. They wanted to have their own home. So, we engage financial experts, and we have a lot of financial experts here in our company. And that was a way for some of our financial experts to volunteer. And we put some people through Financial Peace University with the Ramsey's program, and paid for some of our professionals in the business at the executive level on down to go get certified to teach those courses. So we did some of that. Some people were just good at it. They'd been in finance their whole life, and they could sit and tutor people. But we've helped a lot of people pay for their first homes. Smoking cessation, weight losses. The first one we ever did was a really interesting story. It's a woman that was 40 years with a business, and she just wanted to go on an archaeological dig.
Wow.
And, she didn't have a computer at home. So, again, it was as simple as somebody sitting down, asking her the questions. This came up, and, I talked to the leader that had this conversation with her, and he's like, why don't you do that? She goes, there's two reasons. I don't know how to go about doing that. I don't have a computer at home. I don't know who to call. She was like in her late 60s, worked at a window factory. And then the other thing was that she goes, I can't, I know it would be a long time. I can't take that much time off work. And he was like, well, first of all, I'll get on the internet and find you some options. And second of all, you can take time off work. You've been here for 40 years. You've got 5 weeks of vacation. And just because you haven't taken a lot of vacation in the past doesn't mean you can't start now. This is a dream. You just said it's a dream. So, cool stories like that. I mean, there's been a lot of people that their goals and objectives were improve their relationships with their kids and their spouse. I just got a letter yesterday. I keep a box of letters every time they come in, of emails and things like that, where people just say, look, whether it's the Dream Achiever program or the leadership in general is, inspired me to do this or that. And I'm a changed person. It's impacted my family life. I just put those in the box and just keep saving them because they never get old. But those are some things that have come up.
It's incredible. I have a spreadsheet for my list, but that's an incredible list to have.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you mentioned in the video that you track the number of dreams that are accomplished through the program, and you've had over 3,000 people who has gone through the program. Mm-hmm. How many dreams have you? What's the number today?
Oh yeah, that number I think was pretty recent, so it's probably a little bit more than that. But we're trying to, we keep trying to reinnovate the program and continue to develop it. There's always people coming in, and as people kind of wake up to the power that leadership has, we're able to, bring more people into the program, and it's just one of those things where you need some resources to, to invest in the people. It's hard to do on the job. I mean, if you've got a full-time job, it's kind of hard to become a person that's going to help somebody goal set and do a Dream Achiever type curriculum. But, we have people set aside in the organization for that's their only focus. So they have time to do that. Mm-hmm. And we've gradually increased that staff over time. But, I just encourage companies out there to just take the time to invest in, what would it look like to care for your team member at a different level, and sit down and ask them these questions. It's a hard thing to do. I mean, it's not easy to sit down with somebody you don't really know that well. You only know them from work, and then get into some of this personal stuff. But because of our leaders have all been through a lot of this, I always encourage them to say, hey, look, start with your own journey. Give witness to, hey, look, here's where I was, here's how far I've come, and what's inspired me about leadership, and these are the things I'm working on in my action plan or my goals and objectives. And, kind of throw that on the table to start first. It opens the door for somebody else to start processing and thinking about those things for themselves.
I got to imagine that you're not only doing this on the Dream Project side of things, setting your leaders up to be coaches, essentially, is what you're asking them to do. Lean in, have these like conversations in and around where they are versus where they want to be and what the gap is that we need to problem solve for. So is it fair to presume that you're setting your leaders up to coach on the business side of things too?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, their job is really to coach and inspire and encourage and motivate. And, they got to be good at knowing what good performance looks like, or you can't lead. But, I think all too often in the past, companies have promoted, and I was just talking to somebody last night at a conference. They're asking about how to get culture started and how to really get leaders to do some of the things that our leaders are doing. And, the first part for a lot of people or a lot of business is going to be, well, we promoted the wrong people. We promoted people because of, being on time, or, they just know a lot about the business or the work area, the work cell or the products. Maybe they're good with people. Maybe they're just nice people and they're a positive attitude. All sorts of reasons that companies have promoted people into various levels of leadership. But at the end of the day, those things don't qualify you to be a leader. So, what I tell a lot of businesses is figure out what you want your leaders to look like. And we've got 5 qualities. So they've got to be working on those 5 things as a leader, separate from being a team member from the company. If you're going to lead, you've got to do these 5 things. And then it's easy for us to evaluate and coach people, whether it's leading people in their personal life or leading people in the business, on how that's going to work. And if you don't want to do those things, and you got promoted for all those things, and you just wanted the increase in pay to be a manager or leader, well, that's not going to work for us going forward. And we've cleaned all that up over the last 4 or 5 years, but I know every other company out there that doesn't have a firm leadership curriculum and leader qualities that they're aligning and staying consistent to with their leaders. It's going to be really difficult for them to take a culture journey, because the leadership's got to understand that leadership is going to be the foundation for everything, how we lead.
What are those 5 qualities? Do you mind me asking, just out of curiosity? I gotta presume that one of them is caring about your people.
Yeah. So we've got 5 core values, and then we've got 5 leader qualities. So, we say everybody in the business has to have the core values. That's just foundational. You got to be working at all those things. But if you're going to be a leader in this business, then you got to have 5 other distinct qualities. And, one of those is effective communication. So you've got to learn how to effectively communicate. And most people think they communicate pretty well. And, there's a lot of layers to that effective communication piece. So it's really important. Being a good motivator, that's something that takes a lot of work for a lot of new leaders, because, only a small percentage of the population, I think, are born to be true motivational people. But it's a skill that you can learn. You just have to practice it. And, again, in the leadership piece for us, it's like, we know that you might not be a 10 out of 10 and all this stuff, but you got to be working at it. And if you don't know how to work at it, we've got resources here to help you. There's people around you that are good at all sorts of these values. So, maybe pick somebody you see doing it really well and learn from them. So, being courageous is another one of our leader qualities. Servant leadership. You got to learn how to be a servant leader, and then you've got to be humble and coachable. Not have all the answers. A lot of leaders, they have a knack for thinking they need to be doing all the talking and directing all the time. And what that means is that you're never spending any time listening, which is really the most important part of effective communication. But most leaders don't practice that. They just guide and direct, and bark orders, and think they got to have all the answers all the time, and that's just not true. So those are the 5 leader qualities, and we just ask that all leaders are, hey, what these are? They're on your name badge and your team member ID. So if you ever forget them, they're right there. But how are you working on each of these areas? What's your step in 2023 to be a better communicator? What are you going to do better this year than last year? As long as they're working on progress, our company ought to be getting better, right? Because it means we're leading better if they're really truly working on it. So, and that's what the culture and leadership development department's there for. It's just to add support, make sure that people are going on journeys and they're not just writing things down in a card and putting them in a drawer and, file them away, that they're actually trying to work on themselves and grow and develop, because that's, to me, again, it's the key to high retention. It's the key to business success. Quality, safety, efficiency, innovation, all those things get better the longer people stay, but people aren't going to stay for a long time unless they feel like, hey, I've never worked at a company like this. And, all things else aside, the company cares about me. They're helping me grow and develop. They're helping me open doors I've never had open before. And to me, that's the secret sauce. That's a true competitive advantage in business. It's not price, quality, and service. You got to be good at those things. It's what are you doing to create high retention so that the wheel in the business just gets spinning really fast and your momentum's great.
I love it. And one of the things you mentioned is that the attrition rate for the folks that have gone through the Dream Achiever program is 8%. Mm-hmm. And I checked, so the BLS in 2021 has the manufacturing rate of attrition at 39 basically 40%. Mm-hmm. And so you're doing 5 times better than that.
Yeah. But it doesn't surprise you, right? If you're like, hey, we're taking time, energy, and resources and pouring it into people, showing them that we care, they want to stay longer, and we act surprised. We shouldn't be surprised, but you can't expect them to stay longer if you don't invest the time, energy, and resources and care about them, because people aren't stupid. They know when you care about them and know when you don't. It's a really easy decision for people to make. So, we knew it would be better than the national average. We just didn't know how much better, but it just goes to show, that it works.
There's no doubt it works, and there's no doubt there's a positive return on this. And for all leaders who are super into the numbers, you can look into it. It's around 6 to 9 months to a cost to train and replace a person. Obviously, this varies greatly between highly skilled and new workers, but it's totally doable. And I love that this is a manufacturing context, because I know some of our listeners actually work in Windows manufacturing specifically, and they struggle with turnover and a lot of these things. Mm-hmm. So here's a case study for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a case study.
But it's frustration when we calibrate it with these individuals is that the leadership is not bought in to the value that personally developing their people is actually going to drive for the business. And especially now, we've seen since January, right, Rob, with all this in the news about the economic pressure that's coming down the pipeline, they're even less incentivized now, it seems, to want to prioritize investing in their people. What would you say to those leaders out there that are going into that fight, flight, or freeze mode because of the supposed economic downturn that's coming?
Yeah.
What would
Yeah, there's a lot of advice I'd give. We're on part of our business. We're actually going through a little bit of a down click right now. So it's how you handle that. And again, I just go back to the simple question: is you're caring about your people, and how does it show? You have to. If I ask you, hey, should you care about people or not? It's like the answer to the question is, how can you not care about people? So, but are your actions lining up to that? And that's really what it all boils down to. So sometimes there is bad news, but, effectively communicate it, be transparent, be genuine, do everything you can, live up to the values. Don't tell everybody values are important and then do things where people say, well, that doesn't connect. They're not lining up to values with what they did here. Because the minute you stop living out your values and doing things counter to your values, and people stop believing in the value system, and then they leave because they're like, oh, they're not doing what they say they're going to do. I mean, that's the definition of an integrity, is doing what you say you're going to do. And if you say values are important and you don't, top level leadership isn't doing it and supporting it. And look, I get it. We're a public company. We've got a board. We've got investors. But I will tell any leader that you can't afford not to do it if you're going to really have a culture that people can trust over the long term. If you believe retention is important, then you've got to make sure that the culture and values are intact, good times and bad times. So.
Yeah. In essence, this would be the worst time to pull the emergency brake.
Yeah.
And investing in your people and showing your people that you care. Because guaranteed, if you're stressed, they're stressed.
That's right. 100%.
So never mind the moral consequence of having these poor people going home to their families like that. But yeah, are those people really going to want to come back the next day? I mean, how much worse is it going to be if your people start to leave in droves because of the way that you handled the stress?
Exactly. And then so think about what you just said with respect to that person coming in to build critical parts for a boat or an RV or whatever. You know, when they're coming in, the mindset is like, I don't know if I want to be here, man, I'm stressed out, I'm anxious. How good they are at building, you know, that part or assembly when that's what their mindset is. So I want the team member that's coming in confident, strong, they know where the company's, you know, tells them the good news and the bad news. You know, they're living out the values. I'd rather have the team member that's coming in like that, focusing on building a part versus one that's coming in, you know, not even knowing if they're gonna work at the business the next week. Because they're probably thinking about a lot of other things, not building a quality part.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. Jason, what's your leadership been like to get where you are today?
Well, I've learned a lot of lessons. You know, it's the one problem I have with education is I think they don't prepare leaders well to go out and lead. At least I wasn't. I went to college and, you know, didn't get any leadership classes offered to me. So everything I learned on my own. But early on when I was single, starting the RV business, it was, you know, I was sleeping at the plants. I was, you know, working crazy hours and just trying to build a business. And you know, when you're working that way and you're leading the business, well, what does everybody else think is normal? You know, so we created a lot of bad habits over, you know, a 10-year period. And, you know, it wasn't until I had, you know, it came through my faith journey more than anything else, but ultimately got a mentor that helped me kind of see the light that had been where, and that's what I tell everybody. If you can get a mentor in your 20s, you know, that's probably the best thing you can do for your career is just find somebody that's you know at where you're trying to get to and spend time with them and learn what you can. I wish I would have done that, but you know, again, I didn't have you know, it was trying to figure everything out on our own. But you know, I'm glad we started the culture journey, you know, in 2012, and it's been, you know, 10 solid years of just making progress one year after the next. And you know, our retention numbers show that this is a place people want to be. People can go work wherever they want, right? So I look at retention as the primo grade for whether we're doing a good job with culture, because if it's good, and if it's good as we say it is, people will stick around. And if it's not, they'll leave. You know, the last 10 years have been fantastic. And, you know, I come to work today because of these letters that I was talking about and just the impact I see in people's lives. And I go to a listening session every week with 20 to 60 leaders on the front lines of our business, people that are leading men and women making our parts. And I hear the stories and, you know, transformation stories where people just change, you know, make a change in who they are and how they treat people, especially as it relates to, you know, being in the business for 40 or 50 hours a week. And ultimately they tell stories about how, man, the values and the leader qualities and the way you guys expect us to treat people, man, it carries, I'm a different person when I go home. And it's just, you know, that's the reason I come to work every day is to hear more of that.
I'm so inspired by this. You know, one of the things that we just find so jaw-dropping is the fact that leaders don't, on average, get even exposed to leadership development and training until the age of 46. They're not teaching it in business school, right? So you're not getting on your leadership mission with any of that intel in your experience. So now that you've seen that gap and realized how hard it was for you to learn on your feet, when do you start investing in that leadership development and training for your leaders? When does that journey begin?
Oh, it begins the minute that they become a leader. So I'm talking about, you know, again, we've got 800 people on the front lines of our business leading, you know, 13,000 or so. So those 800 leaders are important. And those are the ones that have definitely, you know, not had any, I mean, some of them didn't graduate from high school. Some of them did, but have been bouncing around different manufacturing jobs. Maybe our business is the first leadership position they've had. So nobody has, you know, if they've had any leadership experience, it's not the right kind. Because again, if there was all sorts of companies out there doing leadership well, especially in manufacturing, the national statistic wouldn't be 88% of the people feeling like their companies don't care about, because that's not the kind of team member that a company with good leadership produces. So, so we're having to retrain everybody, and our curriculum starts the second you become a leader. But some of it starts, our goal over the last couple of years has been to get everybody with a personal and professional growth plan. We call it a leadership action plan. So it's written goals and objectives for every human being in this company, 15,000. Last year we had just started the program, rolling it out. We got 2,500 of our leaders and other team members around the business doing that. Our goal is over the next 2 years is to get every one of our team members doing it. We had to teach our leaders how to do it before we could roll it out to the general population. But, really what a leadership action plan is learning how to lead yourself better so that you're in position to be a leader. So I think that's where, with our company, it'll start with, the window assembler, it'll start with the chassis welder, it'll start with, name the frontline team member in that whatever group you want. It's going to start with that leadership action plan and learning how to lead themselves in a better way. So
inspired.
What's on your leadership action plan?
Oh, I got it right here. Actually, this is what they look like. If you can see it, but
yeah,
don't screenshot it. But I've got some personal stuff that's like, I'm trying to, work on, a lot of self-control, and some of that's, at home, some of that's here. Just, learning how to respond, business, things are moving so fast, and it's tricky to learn how to respond and, at appropriate time in an appropriate way. And I think I've done really well at that compared to how I know I used to be. But, it doesn't matter how far you've grown. And I feel like I've grown a lot in the last 10 years we've been on the journey, but there's always the next step. So, that's what a lot of it for me was, just listening to more feedback, getting out more to businesses. I mean, I think that's where the real power and, what we've learned can impact the world is, okay, we've got 15,000. And if we do it really well here, which I think we are, we're going to impact a lot of people and then their families. But it's still generally a small population compared to the entire population. So what if we've asked the question, what if we get other businesses, just turn the light bulb on for them, help them to take steps. So, that's what I spend some of my time doing today. And I want to spend more time there because it has more impact when, there's 32 million businesses out there. If we can get a handful of them, starting a better culture journey that's going to impact people and their families more positively. I mean, I don't know how the world doesn't get better little by little. And if every business is doing it, then, and we change the way people think about culture and leadership in general inside the business, where, by the way, we have people for a third of their life. How powerful could that be? So I like spending time there. We've got a lot of people calling us and seeing us on social media and asking questions, or go to speak at an event and people say, hey, look, how do we get hooked up? So we've got an external resource, but I spend a lot of time, so that's one of the things on my leadership action plan is just to be more intentional about just saying yes to those types of opportunities, because every light bulb we turn on, and remember, I said earlier on, besides my faith journey that kind of inspired some of this, it was another businessman who had changed culture 10 years prior in his company and just taught us how to do it. So if we can learn from somebody, then we can teach other people, and they can teach other people, and then you figure out how that story ends. But I think it ends pretty good.
I love it.
We want you to tell us how that story ends, right, Rob?
I love it. And yeah, absolutely. If we can help you in any way, let us know for sure. We're on the same mission as you to get folks out there to.
We'll send them our way. We're happy to tell our story. We're happy to give them time. Like I said, I've got a group of culture and leadership development people dedicated to that in our company, and I make them available to people that want to learn. So just send them my way. They can get me on social media. That's the easiest way. And I just told you I don't say no. So, we find out a way to help people. I don't, not answer or not connect them with the resources to help them take some steps.
I love it. Jason, if there's anything you could tell our community of leaders out there, what would it be?
It's really simple for me. It's, everybody knows culture is important. Most business leaders say it's the most important thing. I would just tell them to dedicate resources to it. Don't pile it onto HR. Don't pile it onto, everybody's got to own it, but who is really going to, take the torch and carry it and be the group that people look to, because it can't be a department with 100 other objectives. So I would say start with just one person. There isn't too many businesses out there I can't think of that can't afford to make room for one person to carry the torch here. And then I just say, see where it goes. I'll tell you where it went for me. It went from 1 to 30. Now we're a bigger company, but it might go from 1 to 2 or 1 to 4 for other smaller companies, but you will find the benefit real quick by just making that somebody's, charge. And, that person then can work and just almost be the liaison or the mouthpiece for the CEO or the top level leader or leaders in the business and carry on initiatives every second of every day and touch people when, a lot of the other people in business, especially when there's a downturn like we were just talking about, or a recession, everybody's focused on scrambling and, backpedaling and doing all other things that are, probably critical for the business, but then who's carrying the torch in those times for the culture and leadership development? That'd be what I'd recommend.
A journey that never ends.
Right.
And you obviously are a man of faith on that mission to spread that ripple effect as far and wide as you can.
Yeah,
Do you envision the legacy of all of this being someday, Jason?
Well, my hope is that, like Bob can look at our company and know that he's impacted, if you just keep it to the people in our company that it's impacted positively. My hope is that, look, we've already helped mentor about 100 other businesses. So I know that the impact has been great. And I keep tabs on a few of them that are really, like they'll call me and tell me, hey, we've got values. We're lining up to them. Here's the card. Here's the communication. Had somebody last week say, hey, look, I hired my first culture and leadership development person. So I know that when we do those types of things, that it's going to create massive impact for people and their families. So I hope the legacy is that we've helped a lot of other businesses turn on that light for culture and leadership development and how to do it right and how to care for people in a way that's going to not only help the business, but, heal the world. Because that's what we need. We need more caring in this world, and it can really start in business because that's where people spend most of their time.
Mic drop.
Amazing. And Jason, you're going to need a bigger box to keep all those letters.
I hope so. That's the plan. It's awesome. Already full. I need another one already, but they'll keep filling them up. I get sick of reading those.
That's right. Obviously, for folks out there, if you want to connect to Jason, we've dropped his LinkedIn in the podcast notes. You can also check out their website, lc1.com.
LCI1.
Sorry?
It's LCI1.com.
LCI1, sorry. My vision's not as good. I'm going to need the Susan glasses soon.
You need some of these.
LCI1.com. And yeah, Jason, is there anywhere else you'd want folks to follow you or find you?
I don't have any other social media, but our company, our company's website that you mentioned, we've got a lot of good stuff there. We do have a Leadership Academy website embedded there, so people can get at some of our leadership resources there. But that's there. We have a playbook. We revise it every year. It's 10 years old, so we got a lot of good stuff in there, and that's the kind of stuff when people engage the academy, we hook them, we connect them with some of those resources so that they can, just hopefully find it easier to take their next steps to impact people in a positive way. But no, those are the main ways you can. And social media, just all over the place. There's our company puts a lot of social media stuff out. So I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. And so, folks, head to the website lci1.com. Jason Lippert on LinkedIn, but it's also in the podcast notes, so you can find him there. Obviously, for us, if you want any leadership development training, mindset coaching, and more, head on over to elitehighperformance.com for us. And then also, if you haven't yet, please hit subscribe to Leadership Launchpad Project on your favorite podcast platform, and send this podcast to any leaders in your life who are on their leadership journey or even not, because there's so much that we can all learn from Jason and the journey that he's gone through at Lippert. Susan, is there anything you want to leave your folks with?
I'm just so inspired that we have leaders like Jason coming on this show and sharing the model with our folks, right? I love this last part around imagine the possibilities. People spend most of their lives at work, right? If you actually can help to develop them and optimize their potential in ways that help to heal the world, because this world needs more leaders who care like this. This is exactly why we started this mission here at the Leadership Launchpad Project. So aligned, Jason. We're on a mission to change the way the game's being played forever with this heart-centric, human-centric leadership thing. So I just got to thank you for helping us make that case so that we really can prove this is not the future of business. This is business today. I don't know how you're going to compete with Jason if you don't have his playbook.
I like it. I like it. Anytime you want to have me back on and we have a conversation, I'd love to be a part of the work that you guys are doing. I really appreciate what you guys are doing to get the word out and spread all this out there, because people need to hear it.
Oh, we couldn't agree more. And it's amazing to have someone who's walking the walk as a leader. And I have a quote here to wrap us up from Carl Jung. And he says, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." And that's where it all starts. Sure. Jason, thank you so much for joining us. It was incredible to have you on, and I'm fired up. I'm gonna share that video of you speaking everywhere, because it's an amazing thing that you're doing at Lippert and also putting it out into the world.
Yeah, awesome. Rob, Susan, you guys are awesome. Good meeting you. Let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely. Everyone listening, thank you so much. And we'll see you all next week.
Bye, everyone.